Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the next episode of the Mint Mob podcast. Jason here, joined by my friend and partner Alex across the pond in Germany. We're going to dive into the markets and the next batch mint coming up for Goodfellas NFT. So we got a lot on the plate for you guys today, and we're going to get through it as quickly as we possibly can. Alex, how are you, man? How are things out in Germany?
Hey man, happy to be here again. Things are actually pretty good. Maybe you remember back then when we started the podcast and Spaces, I used to uh, I used to check the markets and had good news every week. But now, unfortunately, it's been pretty calm in the markets. Actually, not even calm because a lot of things are happening. But in terms of price action, there's not much excitement. We still have a lot of sideways movement. We just broke 70K again. I'm not sure can be gone tomorrow, but yeah, I'm happy with everything going on. I'm happy with the news around crypto. Seems like everything is like building up to a great bull run, and yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome, man. Yeah, you were telling me that you were following some news out of China. You said that you saw something about China going back on their crypto ban, if that's the correct word, and maybe embracing crypto in the near future.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't even aware that China completely banned crypto, but yeah, I read a lot of tweets today and yesterday that China is planning to unban crypto in the coming weeks or month. And yeah, people from X, everyone is basically saying that crypto is going to skyrocket. Everything is making like 100x, and yeah, trying to get people into the FOMO. But it's not just that, like I feel like especially with how America moved regarding crypto, everything seems pretty good for us. And when I remember back then when the FTX crash happened, and you got like so many bad news, it felt already heard news about like so many countries banning crypto and regulating crypto, and now yeah, everything has shifted, and it seems like we have a bright future.
Well, that's exciting, man. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting to see a government with, as much power and authority and which rules with an iron fist, kind of like the People's Republic of China, going back on a crypto ban because there were a lot of rumblings when this first happened that this wouldn't be possible, that they would never sustain this effort, that, they would never be able to ban crypto entirely. And I think that's true. Like we still saw, mining operations, although they were largely moved to other jurisdictions, we still saw some mining coming out of China, I think, based on IP address. So they never fully were able to get their arms around it. I wonder if this is just a form of capitulation on their part, admitting that, that they weren't able to actually get the job done. What do you think?
Yeah, that's true, man. I mean, that's actually the good part of crypto. You cannot ban it completely. People will always find a way to get around it, to work around. I think there are many countries, especially in Africa as well, who banned crypto, but people are still getting it. Like there are so many ways to get it, even if it's like if you actually buy it from a private person, you can just buy it from private person who owns crypto, and I'm not sure if they're able to like to check like the I don't know the internet data transfers in the country to see if people can like I don't know if people receive crypto or not. But I don't think they can actually ban everything and say like, hey, nobody's going to own it, nobody's permitted to own it. So yeah, it's just like you said, people countries starting to capitulate, and yeah, crypto will be everywhere, I guess, in a couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. There's a company, I think they're called, what are they called? Blockstream, I believe. Are you familiar with, have you ever heard of Blockstream?
No.
They're basically a satellite network, and they run Bitcoin on their satellite network. So they can basically broadcast Bitcoin to anyone, anywhere in the world that can receive a satellite signal. So, I mean, you can basically just broadcast, wherever you want, anywhere you want, I mean, irrespective of borders or countries and all the rest of it, I guess, assuming there's probably some legality around that. But, I mean, with crypto running on satellites, I mean, there's really nothing that can be done to stop them. I mean, what are you going to do? Take the satellites out? Take the internet out? Like, it's just not going to happen. So, I think it's interesting to see these types of things develop, and then see governments backpedal on these iron-fisted policies about bans. I think it sort of, you know, validates the idea that people put forth way back when, that once money is out of the hands of government, that they can't control it anymore, that a great amount of power is returned to the people. So stuff like this is really great to see.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm curious to see, but I remember back then in 21 when we had the bull run, there were like so many companies and, like online shops, and everyone was accepting cryptocurrencies. And, you were basically able to order food. You could order a pizza paying Bitcoin, although history taught us that this is not a good thing. But I'm curious to see what happens in the next bull run in 2025. If you can actually, like, imagine Amazon accepts Bitcoin transactions, that would be crazy, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely on the brink of that for sure. Amazon is basically taking over the world. They have started running ad campaigns here in the US for healthcare. So Amazon is now providing healthcare services to its subscribers, which is, again, another market that needs to be revamped, that needs to be overhauled, and Amazon is stepping in saying, hey, we can do that for you. So there's a lot of problems that entrepreneurs are solving, and entrepreneurship is solving, and so it's great to see more power be returned to people via vehicles like something like Amazon, which was created by a guy, some guy in his garage originally, and now it's one of the world's largest companies, and now it's empowering other buyers and sellers to create businesses on that platform, and now there's, healthcare on Amazon. Imagine that. Who would have thought it?
Yeah, definitely crazy, crazy what they do all over the world. And it's actually funny that Jeff Bezos himself told his employees that, after some more years, Amazon will go bankrupt. And he explained that the lifespans of large companies typically span like 30 plus years, I think he said, but not 100 plus years. And yeah, that's so crazy to think that even he realizes that no company is going to exist forever, and that, like, even he says Amazon will go bankrupt.
Yeah, there's, I think what happens is, this is actually a really interesting conversation. Like, if you think back in terms of some of the largest companies to ever exist, especially in the States around the turn of the century with the Industrial Revolution, you had companies like Standard Oil, for example. Are you familiar with like some of the oil plays that took place back here in the U.S. way back in the day?
Depending on what time are you referring to?
Well, like back in the day, people used oils to heat their homes or to light their homes, and there was really no way of guaranteeing what type of liquid you could get. And so Rockefeller came out with Standard Oil, which meant that he had standardized the product that you were buying so that when you bought one of his products, you always got the same kind of quality. And so the name of his company was Standard Oil, right? And then, that company got so big, it became a bunch of other different companies. Like later on, it became SO, but it was spelled ESSO for just Standard Oil, and it just kept evolving over the years and turning into different companies and being bought out by different companies because of the monopoly or because of the market conditions or because of, input costs or whatever the case may be. The company just kept becoming other companies. And I think that's kind of what, I think that's what Bezos is referring to. Like a company that size can't remain that size forever. At some point, it's going to be broken up into pieces or parts, or, another part will be sold off to a different company who can do it better, that sort of thing. But not necessarily that the company itself is going to go away, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally makes sense. I read that article just a couple days ago, and I just thought it's crazy to even think about it nowadays. But yeah, seems like it's inevitable at some point. Another thing, I actually had a pretty interesting talk with my brother today, who's also heavily invested in crypto, and we talked about, like, there's so many projects coming out these days, and it feels like every new blockchain's USP is basically the transaction speed. And we all know that, the big problem with Bitcoin used to be the amount of time for that a transaction needed. But I feel like, with Bitcoins evolving, and we got runes now, and we will definitely get a way of transferring money that is a lot more usable for people in their everyday life than we have now. And we have, like, for example, Solana now, who usually is like, when these projects usually have like some kind of chart, and they show like, hey, this Solana's transaction speed is like, I don't know, 4,000 TPS, and ours can like have 1 million transactions per second. And now we have like the Fire Dancer update that is still coming, I guess, and which is going to cause a much bigger a possibility of transactions per second. And that definitely feels like, all these other blockchains will be needless at some point, and unnecessary. And we had that discussion about, will there be as many different projects in the future as we have now? Because I know your point is you're only investing in the big three, basically. And you also said many times that you think all these other coins will go to zero at some point. And I definitely have to agree now, because back then I felt like, okay, if there is some other chain that manages to have a lot more transactions, they might surpass Solana or some other big cryptocurrency. But now, as we see how these big projects evolve as well, and how they manage to optimize their blockchains, I feel like it's possible that we'll have in a couple of years that we'll have like 10 or 15 cryptocurrencies that are like significant, and all the other ones will be gone. Do you agree on that? Or
Yeah, 100%. The vast majority of these, I don't know how many thousands it is right now. There's tens of thousands, if not 100,000 different tokens and coins floating around the marketplace. 99.9% of them are going to zero. And the reason for that has nothing to do with speed so much as just lack of imagination. Like there's, if you look at, like you mentioned speed as being one of the differentiating factors. I think you used the term USP, which for those of you guys who don't know what that means, that stands for unique selling proposition. So their unique selling proposition would be, speed. Okay, well, we're fast. Well, there's another chain that comes along that's fast, and another chain that comes along that's fast. But what's the trade-off? Well, the trade-off is, okay, well, maybe it's not as secure because it's moving too fast to actually have the proper checks and balances to be secure. So you have something like Bitcoin, which is always secure and hasn't failed since its origination. So at the end of the day, like, what's the trade-off? And then you find out that, okay, well, maybe we don't have to settle so fast. Maybe we can settle on a layer 2. Like Bitcoin's Lightning Network, for example. We'll do a transaction on Lightning, and then Lightning can settle the transaction on the main chain later. So you came up with you get all these workarounds, and all these workarounds start to eliminate the need for other chains that are quote unquote faster, right? And so the question becomes, how much technology is the average person willing to have separated on their device or their phone or whatever? Do you really want to have 5 different wallets or 10 different wallets or 15 different wallets just because this coin can now communicate with that coin or this chain can communicate with that chain? No, the average person wants simplicity. They want one thing to do everything. That's the whole reason the iPhone is successful, because it's simple, stupid, and the average person is simple, stupid, and they don't want to think about it, right? So if you want to play with your code and you want to play with your interface, you get an Android because it's for more advanced users. So at the end of the day, like, the average person's telling you straight up, hey, I want simplicity. So give me the simplicity. And so when someone comes up with a way to basically say, my USP is simplicity, in other words, I can eliminate, the speed differences between this token, that token, and the other token, and at the same time I can give you the security of something like Bitcoin, I think that's what wins. That's the user. That's the killer app that wins right there. because again, the end user doesn't care about all this technical mumbo jumbo. And when you look at, some of the technologies and coins that were supposed to just kill it, like Cardano was supposed to kill ETH, and, Polkadot was supposed to be, this other big thing, and they're all going to join all the chains together, and we're all going to be multi-chain and all the rest of it. Well, that's a cool idea, but the question is it necessary in the average person's life? And you can look at token prices of like Cardano or, Polkadot, for example, and you can see that they're nowhere near their previous highs. And right now, they don't even have a prospect for reattaining or re-getting those highs. So I think the market is telling us we're determining what's valuable based on utility and user interface type stuff. And the rest of that tech stuff, you boys can, you can have it. We don't care, So yeah, all of these tokens, all these technologies, all these things are either enveloped, subsumed, brought into another project, or they just fail. That's it. That's the only options really at this point.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like we have been, last time we were live, we talked about that Algorand commercial that they had. And I also feel like, I see so many projects doing so much stuff, and, like they have blockchains, they come up with like wallets, they have like Chrome extensions and everything. But in the end, you need people who use that stuff. And a lot of projects lack these people because there's no need for that, as you just mentioned. And if we have Solana doing that in a good way, if we have, like, as you mentioned, the Bitcoin Lightning Network and everything, we do not need all that stuff. So yeah, I also feel the same way that you just described. I do not want to have like 10 different wallets. I want one thing on my phone, that I want, that's usable in my everyday life, and I want to be able to pay with any kind of cryptocurrency. And if that's Bitcoin and it's working, it's great because everyone uses Bitcoin, and this is most likely going to be some kind of world currency one day, right?
Definitely a world store of value. I don't know about currency. That basically steals a lot of power from governments, and you know how governments are when it comes to holding onto their power. But in terms of being a base layer for wealth preservation, absolutely. I mean, it's destined for that. I mean, you've got banks around the world are now buying it. Big investors are buying it. Companies are buying it. El Salvador has made it legal tender. I think there's another country that made it legal tender as well. I forget the name of it. But these types of things are going to continue to happen as more and more people realize that the dollar, which has been the world's reserve currency for, basically 100 years almost, I guess 80 years now, the dollar is failing. It's being printed into oblivion. It's being inflated away. And, we saw this so many times throughout history. Everybody likes to use the Weimar Germany example. But, the truth is, every single fiat currency since the beginning of time has gone to zero. It's not just Weimar Germany, right? So people forget this. Even in the U.S., like we had the continental dollar that went to zero. I mean, we've had currencies in the U.S. already fail as the country was being formed and developed. So, these people who think that the U.S. dollar is just the end-all, be-all and it's never going to go away are going to be sorely mistaken. I think most recently at a conference, Robert Kiyosaki was talking about this on his podcast. Michael Saylor was speaking, and the question was, what do you call someone who holds U.S. dollars? And Saylor's response was poor, and that's the truth, right? So like you can't save in U.S. dollars. I know, the Canadian dollar has been inflated away drastically over the last 4 to 5 years under Trudeau. Same thing is happening in Europe. Same thing's happening in all the major economies. And of course, all the Banana Republic economies are that way as well. So if I can have a base layer of something that lives on a phone that I own and control, then I want that thing. I don't want my local currency. I only want to trade in my local currency when I have to. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's the job of Bitcoin. Something like Solana or ETH, we can build apps. We can, do business transactions, database type stuff. We can do our artwork. We can do our provenance. We can do our tracking, our royalties, all of that kind of thing. But Bitcoin, I think, sits underneath that as the world's store of value in terms of wealth preservation.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I'm so curious to find out where we all are in a year from now. How fast is adoption going, and yeah, curious to find out and to observe the markets, keep observing them. Um, but yeah, let's jump maybe into another space, good old NFTs. And if I check the markets there, it still seems like it's in some kind of downfall. Um, Dude, when do you see NFT season coming?
I think NFT season is on the tail end of the meme coin mania that's going on. Honestly, the meme coin thing started at the end, toward the end of last year. You had a few projects, large projects dropping, like Jupiter, for example, and then they dropped tokens on the world. And then it sort of kicked off this frenzy around people, every single project dropping tokens, dropping tokens, dropping tokens. And then, of course, if you were in certain jurisdictions, you may not have been able to participate. I know a lot of U.S. citizens weren't able to participate in some drops because of the SEC rules and this sort of thing. So, I think people saw a lot of money sloshing around in that marketplace. And then, if you're a decent marketer and you've got the ability to tell a story, you can jump in that market and make a quick buck. Then, hey, there you go. And you've seen it when it culminates. And I think right now it's culminating when it starts to culminate when you see people who have no tie to crypto whatsoever in the crypto market doing crypto things like Iggy Azalea, for example. Like Iggy Azalea token, really? Who cares? Hulk Hogan token, which got rugged apparently. I mean, these are the types of silliness, types of ridiculousness that you see in a market that is completely speculating. And the thing that's sort of devastating about that is that when you see speculation that rampant and that wild, what it's telling you is that people don't see a better option somewhere else. And because they don't see a better option somewhere else, they're actually willing to put their money, the money that they work for, you know, inside some harebrained scheme or idea of a ridiculous meme token because they don't see a better option somewhere else in the world. So rampant speculation is not a good thing. It tells you that people don't feel like they have options. And that's really the problem here. So what I think happens is meme coin season ends as more and more people realize that they're losing their money and that these tokens have no real value. It starts to come to a halt. And then there's that period of depression where people think everything sucks, everything's dead. And then you ride through that period. And then you start to see consolidation. Like there's one or two meme coins that emerge as winners. And then there's one or two, quality NFT projects that start to emerge as quality NFT projects, and people start looking for quality because they've sort of exhausted their appetite for this rampant speculation. So I think we're kind of coming into the tail end of that, but we've probably got a good, 3 or 4 months more to go at least, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the NFT space has like well, a worse reputation than the crypto space, because when you thought bad about crypto and now you see, okay, Bitcoin is reaching new all-time highs, and you got the proof that there is something behind it. You see so many good news about crypto recently, and I feel like there needs to be something that kicks off the NFT season, like some project that stands out, some project that goes up in prices as well, so people actually shift their attention to the space. And when you check the crypto space and you see all these meme coins performing good or bad, or whatever, you just mentioned Hulk Hogan. I saw that Andrew Tate recently did a lot in the crypto space and pumping coins and burnt coins worth millions and stuff like that. You see that there's a lot of attention on that, but we had that in the past as well. So many NFT projects without some kind of purpose. And it's actually funny because I just fell over a tweet that kind of told the story of an NFT project called Rifters. Are you familiar with them?
I'm not, no.
You're not. Okay, so Rifters was basically an NFT project that minted for 10 Solana, which was a pretty high price back then. and promised a $1 million prize pool for when they actually created a game, I think, and now they are sitting at zero point zero 0.01 Solana floor after the founder basically dared people to sue him in Panama, and the game even won some kind of award and everything. And the idea was, back then, I was invested, I gotta say, and the idea was actually pretty. It sounded pretty good. It was I'm actually reading from a thread now, so if people claim that I'm stealing or that I'm stealing something, I'm obviously reading a thread here. So the idea was that they had the first community event RPG, and it was basically a MMO game. The game was terrible. I can say that in advance. And yeah, they always said that there will be a $1 million prize pool, and people were able to mint these NFTs for 10 Solana, as I mentioned. And what they did is they said that once you have that NFT on Solana, they will mint another NFT on Ethereum as well, and you will be able to choose if you want your 10 Solana back or if you want the Ethereum NFT for free. And so they basically said the 10 Solana you paid initially were like you'd get them back. And then they started their Ethereum mint, and they were not able to mint out in the end. And the claim at the beginning was that they said, "Hey, you mint for 10 Solana, then you will be able to get these 10 Solana back in the next round of minting the Ethereum NFTs." Then there was supposed to be another mint on Polygon where you could get 10 Solana back again. And then there was supposed to be a mint on Binance, I think, where you could get another 10 Solana. So they basically said, "Hey, invest 10 Solana. If you are just into like making profits, you will be able to get back 30 Solana in the end." But what happened was that they were not able to mint out the Ethereum NFT, so they couldn't fulfill their promise. Just a little amount of people got the 10 Solana back. And yeah, in the end, they basically rocked. And a lot of people who were highly invested went for the founder and said, "Hey, we're going to sue you," and this and that. And the original idea from him, because he was doxxed and everything, he even was going to conventions and NFT related stuff and showed himself and presented his game. Like I said, the game was terrible, but yeah, in the end, he had no solution for the whole project, and basically rocked. And I was like, in my personal opinion, was because I sold that NFT for like 5 Solana, I think. But my personal opinion was like he was actually trying to do a good thing. Like he was actually he was sure that his idea was going to work out in the end. So do you think you can judge these kind of people, or do you feel like, okay, he tried, he was some kind of startup, he failed, people who invested lost their money, but it's always some kind of risk investing in NFTs. Do you think you can see it that way, or do you feel like he needs to be held accountable for that and be sued by everyone now?
Well, based on your description of the project, it's a pyramid scheme. So, I mean, the only way it works is for him to bring in a fresh set of suckers. So like if I buy in for 10, and I have to sell some Ethereum ETFs, or I'm sorry, some Ethereum NFTs to get money to my original buyers, that's the classic definition of a pyramid scheme. So I would not have put any money in that based on that particular information. But if he doxed himself and he told you up front what he was doing, and then you got involved, then yeah, that's on you. I mean, that's not his fault. Now it's his fault how he executes. So can I judge him? Yeah, I can judge him based on his ability to execute. Because here's the thing, like in the world of entrepreneurship and business or creation, ideas are a dime a dozen. Like any jackass can show up with a good idea, but it takes a good operator, and it takes like a committed person and or team to actually execute the idea. And that's where so many people fall apart. Like if you can't execute the idea, it doesn't really matter how good it is. So from that standpoint, I would look at the business sort of proposal or idea and then I would gauge it based on, is this valid, right? That would have been my first gate. Is the business model valid? And in this particular description, it doesn't sound like it was, based on what little I heard you say. But then in terms of execution, it sounds like he didn't execute that well either. So I would say, he failed on both accounts. But anyone who, went into that with eyes wide open, yeah, it's 100% on them. It's their responsibility. That's what I would say.
Yeah, definitely. What I liked about the idea was that it had some kind of innovation to it. Like the Mint had some kind of bidding system implemented, and I think his major problem was that the developers and who created the game, that they made a lot of mistakes, and that the whole idea of the game was bad. It was browser based. I checked it out once, and it just wasn't fun. Like I immediately realized this game is shit. It's no fun playing it, and that's actually the whole point of a game. So yeah, when I saw that, I realized pretty quick, okay, I need to get out of here. But talking about like ideas and the ability of execute these, I think it's pretty similar to our beloved Art of Mob, because the idea behind it wasn't that bad if they were able to execute it actually. But looking at it from the beginning and seeing what they tried to do, should have probably opened every holder's eyes, and make them realize that this is not possible, that big film companies are never going to cooperate with some kind of NFT project that is just showing up from Dubai or wherever they were, and giving them some kind of IP rights to their movies, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, IP rights are bought and sold, so, I mean, the idea itself is a good idea in terms of would people enjoy, consuming tokenized content. Yeah, of course. Everyone wants to be able to, have something that they can, hold on to that's meaningful to them, whether it's audio or video or images or what have you. But the question that, comes to mind when you start thinking about, massive movie studios who are tossing hundreds of billions of dollars around every single year, they don't need you. They can hire it done. Like if they want to do it, they'll hire it done and they'll do it better than you can do it. So, the odds of that happening are very slim. Now, if you have relationships at a studio, that's a different story. Maybe they hire you or maybe they subcontract you because there's an existing relationship. But if that isn't the case and you're not bringing a relationship to the table, then the technology is much cheaper for them to develop and to just own than it would be for them to, work with you on any level. Now, it might be a test market type thing where it was a temporary licensing agreement. You've seen this a lot, right? Where I can use Star Wars as an example, right? Because it's such a huge IP rights licensing thing from Lucasfilm. So, Lucasfilm sold their IP to Disney a few years ago for like $4 billion. Okay, well, when we look at who was using Disney IP, or I should say Star Wars IP, there was a comic book company that was producing comics when Lucasfilm owned it, and then when they sold it, that comic book company had to give up rights to telling those stories, and they immediately lost that IP because it wasn't exclusively guaranteed to them for any length of time over any length of time. And so when Disney bought out Lucasfilm's IP, they had to stop producing, and they lost a huge chunk of revenue for their company because they weren't able to negotiate from a place of power, because Star Wars was way bigger than their comic brand, right? So they just took it on. But now that it was brought back to Disney, and of course Disney owns Marvel, Marvel's putting out all the Disney IP, all of the Lucasfilm IP, all of the Star Wars IP. It's all being, put out through Marvel. And so, there would be the potential for, like a test market thing where you could temporarily use the IP, but they're never going to give it to you. It's never going to be yours completely. And then you stand the risk that this comic book company took of basically having your IP pulled and you not being able to actually put out a line of product that you could sell and make money on. And that's tremendously risky. So from all angles, like the Art of Mob stuff was a decent idea, but executing it would have required a shit ton of relationships, a shit ton of money, and a lot of negotiating with lawyers back and forth. And that was just never going to happen.
Yeah, that's true, unfortunately. But let's jump into our little project. We have actually a pretty big thing coming up. Another batch mint is going to happen. You were able to finalize the batch just yesterday, I think. And yeah, I just received the badge today, looked through it, and I absolutely love it. Love the work that you did, love the traits that you created. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So this batch actually, this one's kind of near and dear to me because I feel like it's one of the best ones, if not the best one that's gone out so far. Obviously we're coming into summer, and so we've got a couple nods to summer in there. We've got a head trait that's kind of a summer, like a summer related phrasing on a common theme that we see here in North America and a lot of English speaking countries. We've got a new head trait that sort of is bright and sort of lifts the artwork into that summer feeling. And there's a new eyewear trait, which is kind of cool. Almost it's glasses, but kind of almost looks like goggles in a certain way. And so pairing these traits together looks really cool. And then the other thing is when I was going through some of the auto-generated content from this particular batch, I noticed that there were a lot of pieces that just fell flat. And so what I did was I went through all 100 pieces, and basically about 50 of them, of the total, have been hand redone. So not only do we have the new traits, there's a total of seven head traits. So there's 7 in 100. So this is going to be the new sort of biggest trait that stands out inside the group. And I'm probably going to make these all rank of capo so that they kind of stand out in the collection itself. And then there's quite a few of the eyewear trait. But then the vast majority of the rest of the collection, in addition to those pieces that have been touched, all of the, like I said, up to 50 of these pieces have been hand touched and hand redone, from backgrounds to build outs. And basically what I wanted to do was make sure from top to bottom, whether it was a head trait, a background trait, an outfit, or what have you, I wanted to make sure all the colorations lined up and everything popped and everything was really nice and bright and vibrant, so that it basically captured the essence of like a beautiful image, and one that you could be proud to own, right? Like there's pieces that I like better than other pieces, but of these 50 of the 100, like I would say 1 out of every 2 would be very difficult for me not to use as a PFP or to call on as something that I really like. There's just so many pieces that were touched and hand done, not from like the standard computer generated layering, but from like a human's eye looking at it, saying this works well with this and this works well with that. Like that type of thing is missing from so many collections. And then of course, the layering of different pieces, whether it's hair on top of a hand trait or a hand trait on top of hair. When you're doing this stuff generatively, you can't choose the layering order because the system has to do it in its pre-programmed order. And obviously that limits you a great deal. So there are quite a few where we added long hair traits where the hair actually covers part of a hand trait, which would be what happens in reality. And it makes the piece that much more live and that much more realistic. And so when I look at our collection and I see all the great detail that went into creating the outfits and all the great detail that went into like the hair traits, for example, or the weapons and the hand traits, like I'm always looking for ways to elevate that. And aside from adding, to it in a meaningful way, whether it's a new trait or what have you, aside from adding to it, the best thing that I can do as a curator is to just make sure everything works, right? And so I spent, like I said in my post, a good 6 hours yesterday just going through everything and like pulling layers together that I felt like needed to be updated. So it's good to hear that you've gone through it and had a chance to see some of that. And, obviously you said that you liked it, but I'm curious if anything stood out as you went through those pieces and looked at the artwork.
Yeah, what was really standing out is, of course, the new traits that you created, especially the head, which is basically some kind of summer trait, which is kicking off this month. We're having summer, and Yeah, I'm actually a big fan of all the new traits you create, but this one is very special, in my opinion. And I also really love the one of one that you created. You already mentioned it in the spaces last time that it's some kind of homage to Sinatra, and I think most of you people are familiar with the work he has done. And do you have some kind of special connection to him, or why did you choose him?
Yeah, just actually, there's a recurring theme. So for those of you guys paying attention, you'll know that one of the hand traits is one of our guys holding like a, like the block that you held when you get a mug shot. Let's say you get arrested. You hold a little block that's got the numbers on it and your name and what have you. So we have this hand trait where that is portrayed in the image. And the numbers on the image are, they correspond to Frank Sinatra's arrest. He was actually arrested back in the day. So if you look at that hand trait and then you go research it, the numbers on there, you'll see that there's a connection to Sinatra's arrest record. And so, Sinatra is kind of an interesting character because, in the 40s, 50s, and 60s when he was really big, he was basically thought of as being kind of like a hothead in some sense of the word. Like he was known for having a temper. He was rumored to be associated with the mob. He obviously played a lot in all of the mob-run casinos and cities. And so, there's this sort of mystique that surrounds him and his life. But he's also known for doing a lot of great things. Like he stood up for civil rights back in the day. Like there were times when he wouldn't perform if like Sammy Davis Jr. wasn't allowed to perform type thing. And so he stood up for, minorities, and he stood up for, racial equality back in the day. And, I think that someone who basically stands against the status quo is someone who's worth your attention. Like today, if you stand against the wokeists, then you would be kind of like the Sinatra of today, right? Like you're going against the crowd and you're standing on your own 2 feet and you're holding your own opinion. And to me, these are the people who matter in the world, right? The people who are willing to take the slings and arrows, the people who are willing to stand up for something that they believe in. And so, he's one of those guys. And not only was he one of those guys, he was a fantastic entertainer. And so, with the ties to the mob, to him standing on his own 2 feet, to him having his own ideas, to this just dichotomy of life that he lived and this very interesting life that he lived, he's just been always an interesting character to me. So we listen to it, we have his music here at the house and, at date night, or we have people over, we'll have Sinatra playing, and it's just something that I think a lot of people can relate to. And I think when you see the piece, you'll see the Sinatra fedora, like the Sinatra sideways fedora coming through there. There's actually a microphone trait, and I can obviously describe this without you seeing it, but there's just this really sort of cool way that the figure is standing in the image, and you can kind of see Sinatra in the image. And so from the previous trait to this one of one to his history to his life, I think he just sort of emulates and embodies what we're about here, because, we're about doing things our way, about doing things differently, about not being status quo, about standing against the crowd. And so I think he's one person that basically emulates all of those things.
Yeah, that's so cool. I feel like we have seen a lot done from your side that actually is like, for example, like the Marvel stuff. We know that you're a big fan of Marvel, and now we got Sinatra. It seems like you're a big fan of him as well. So what's next?
Yeah, I think what's next is summer, right? Like, so we have summer officially begins, I think, on the 21st. So I think going into the next batch, we'll have some more summer traits. Some things that I've been playing with our figures, which are very difficult, is like a Hawaiian shirt trait, kind of like a beach vibe. It'd be really cool to pull off some really cool beach stuff, maybe a beach ball trait, these really cool things that emulate summer. We definitely want to incorporate that into some of the coming batches. And then, of course, in July, we've got, obviously the 4th of July, which is a big deal here in the U.S. Canadian independence is also in the summer. So there's a lot of celebrations coming up around like the birth of countries. And so maybe we'll see a Uncle Sam one of one. Who knows? We'll just have to play with it and see. But there's 1,000 different ways we can take it, and I'm just trying to keep it fresh with like the seasons and the vibe that that we're in right now. So that's kind of where my head is.
Yeah, definitely. And in case you're listening to the podcast but haven't checked out the Discord yet, there's probably going to be an announcement that is referring to the Saga phone giveaway that we are running, and you will be able to see what you need to do to have the best chances of winning it. So definitely check that out. And another idea that we have, I'm not sure if we already want to talk about it, but we want to have different eras in the Goodfellas ecosystem. Do we already want to talk about it, or do we want to keep that for the future?
Yeah, I mean, we can mention it just briefly. I think it's something that probably we need to spend a whole episode on because obviously deciding what the eras will be a huge conversation because every single one is going to demand, a certain amount of artwork. But basically, if you think in terms of a 10,000 piece collection, normally that collection is spit out by a computer. If it's a generative collection, it's spit out by a computer. There's not one person who sits and does all of the layering and all of the artwork and then, creates all the metadata. That's all done automatically. So the first thing, obviously doing batch mints, we've been able to incorporate the human element, which I think is what gives our collection a bit of its pizzazz, if you will. But imagine you get through your first 1,000 pieces and you've seen this piece displayed a bunch of different ways. In a particular art style. But let's say, for example, from 1,000 to 2,000, you enter into a different era. So you might consider this an edition, or you might consider this a season. I think Alex likes to say DeGods, has seasons for their pieces. But imagine pieces 1,000 through 1,999 is a different style, but with the same vibe, like that same original vibe, right? Maybe it's 1940s, like war poster style, or maybe it's film noir, or, maybe it's more cartoony, who knows what it is. But each one of those eras can actually be an update to the original style, or not really an update, but a sort of a vamp or a reimagining of the original pieces, such that, once you get to the end of the collection, you can have different styles of your original idea living inside the same collection, and your collectors can, basically go through each piece and decide, I'm going to build a family in this style, or I'm going to build a family in this style over here, or this style really, is something that I vibe with, and I want to collect all these pieces. And so it basically gives us the ability to put out, again, super high quality artwork and an IP, but, all under one umbrella, and sort of touch on this idea that we're about the art. And, as much as we could sit and continue to add trade after trade after trade after trade, one of the freshest ways to update visuals would be to partner with other artists and to have them redraw our traits in their style and sort of marry up the traits as we go in different art styles. So that's kind of the idea behind eras. And, we could talk about it in another podcast when we have more time, and what some of those styles might actually look like. We could post up some examples and that sort of thing, some things that we're playing with. But yeah, it's something that I think would keep us basically fresh. It's one of the big things we want to make sure that we do. And, but still unite the original ideas under one umbrella. So, I mean, at the highest level, that's probably the easiest way to think of it, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Nicely described. And I'm really looking forward to creating all these eras and getting some ideas from the community as well. I mean, I think we are both looking forward to include them into the ideas and evolvement of the project, especially the bosses. So yeah, really looking forward to that. And I think we are done with the topics we had for today, right?
Yep, that's all I got for you, man. Like I said, or like Alex said earlier, if you guys are listening, be sure and jump into Discord. You should find a link on our Twitter. But we'll obviously, have the link posted for the spaces and everything else as everything becomes live. But feel free to join us. We're going to be getting out some referral NFTs. So for those of you guys who are unaware, our project hasn't necessarily been open to the public, and we're getting to the place where we're starting to open it up a little bit more. So we're going to have some ads going out and some opt-in forms that will allow you guys who are interested in a high-quality, long-term artwork play to be able to join us. And we'll have that information posted inside the Big News channel as well inside Discord.
Exactly. So this was it for today. Make sure to stay updated and check out the Discord. Thank you for listening today again to everyone, and looking forward to next time. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.